Our world is changing every day, and so should we, for the better. Each week, we tackle the big why, the question that should be on everyone's minds. Why isn't this fixed yet? Deforestation, global warming, and the adverse effects of climate change. The future isn't just something that we inherit, it's something that we create. Join us on The Green Fix as we tell the stories of those who refuse to give up. When it comes to fixing the planet, there is no time to waste. Join me, Shiksha Arora, on Thursdays at 9 p.m. on The Green Fix as we look into the big why, you and I.
Are you ready to elevate your business game?
As long as you're earning something, there's always that opportunity to save. And you start with where you are.
Kama wewe ni mfanyabiashara, huwezi kaa bure, unajipanga taratibu vile inyo.
Another wonderful morning right here on Morning Cafe. My name is Freddy Ndimuli. Tunasongea kwa ile siku ya mapenzi.
Absolutely.
I wonder the smile on your face.
Good morning. Of course, the countdown is already tunasongea hapo.
2 days.
2 days.
Wengine wana count maneno ya AU. Wewe una count ya Valentine's.
Anyway, tunataka kukumbusha kwamba even as you count down for that Valentine's, AUC pia ina knock. Actually today is the 12th, so something is starting there today, the selection panel that will oversee that election. Wameanza kazi leo, wanakuwa elected today and tomorrow, and then we break for Valentine's, and then AUC now. We see kina Musa Faki, we see kina Raila Odinga there. So of course, we'll be there.
Mambo inachemka very nicely, and of course from the headlines yesterday we could see that quite a number of MPs, about 100 or so of them, making their way to Addis Ababa ahead of the elections.
So yes, is already there.
Yes, lazima kuko kama ile in charge of foreign affairs. So a lot of focus on Addis Ababa, also a lot of happening in Kenya as well.
Yes.
In Naivasha. The IEBC selection panel, wanajipanga hivi, tayari they've already advertised in the papers for anyone interested in being an IEBC commissioner. Yes, so kama unataka kazi, kazi iko tayari.
Apply, iko kazi KE.
All right, also being 12th of February, it is an international day for the prevention of violent extremism as and when conducive terrorism. Yes. The International Day for Prevention of Violent Extremism that is being observed globally. Back home, let's take a look at the quick highlights. House of Impunity, and I think I love the headlines on the Standard this week. Very short, punchy.
To the
House
point.
of Impunity, yes, straight to the point.
Kizaza bungeni, that is Taifa Leo.
Tower of Babel, that's a People Daily. Yes, 3-word headlines, and I think this is the way to go. Apana kuandika sentence, okay. Ameandika mrefu. Poll lays bare best performing governors. That's on the front page of the Star. Tuko na nyingine hapa. The Daily Nation. Shah tycoons link in teachers' insurance wars. That's the Daily Nation this morning. We'll be looking at that as well on Business Daily.
Deported Ruto ally wins affordable housing deal.
How about that? So on State of the Nation this morning, we're going to be having this legislators. A lot happening in Parliament. Jana mashindano ya who's majority, who's minority. Ilikuwa imechemka sawasawa. Big girl Mili alifanya ile kitu.
Bad girl.
Beatrice Elachi, MP Dagoretti North, Geoffrey Ruku, MP Mbeere North, and Njeri Maina, Woman Representative Kirinyaga County, will be with us in studio. Later on, we'll be talking matters Valentine's, and this is why you're excited.
48 hours away. You know, Wednesday is a very interesting day. Watu wanakuanga hapa tukiongelea maneno ya mapenzi. That is why it's so interesting. So Valentine's is around the corner, and we'll be having these 4 ladies and gentlemen to talk about that.
I like that question. Who should be celebrated more? Is it the men or the women? What do you think?
Tell us.
Ni nani ana deserve ku celebrate your Valentine's? Kuna wale wanakuanga wamejitwika wakasema ni wao. Also for the same conversation, we'll be having Judith Ngerechi in studio as well. She's a wellness advocate and champion for women and vulnerable children rights.
Yes.
All right. So we'll be back to take a look at the local dailies. But even after that mapenzi discussion.
Tasty Wednesday with Duncan Kotoine, a chef at the Panama.
Leo anapika rib eye steak.
Yes.
Aish. All right. Twende regional. And in Uganda, they're talking matters education. And Kenya unaweza kuwa confused. This is February. Hii maneno inatoka hapi. Tulimalizana na mambo ya exam kitambo. But in Uganda, these are O-level. Top schools per district. New grading explained, best schools countrywide. So this is about O-levels. And they have the best performers there on the front page. Utaona now, wakifanya hivi, in a day or two, they'll have the best teachers on the front page. That's what they do in
Best
Uganda.
performing mathematics teachers.
We do not have the Daily Monitor with us today, but I can assure you, I've looked at the front page of the Daily Monitor. It is the same thing. They're talking about nothing else. It is top schools and top performers in the O-level exams.
Yeah.
Yes.
Bank of Uganda bosses vetted, that is Michael Atingi Ego on the right and Augustus Nuwagaba after vetting at Parliament yesterday. Of course, that is after 3 years hiatus at the BOU, Bank of Uganda.
In Bongo, Tanzania, today we have The Citizen, and they talk about this study where they say civil society faces crisis after USAID freeze. You know, nafikiri huku ndo tunaisema USAID. In America, they say USAID.
Oh.
Every day you learn. So Tanzania's civil society sector is facing an unprecedented crisis following the US government's decision to suspend all international aid programs. This is according to the findings from a new study. Yes.
Programs such as the US President's Emergency Plan for AIDS Relief, that is PEPFAR, were being implemented in Tanzania through local civil society organizations.
So issues around provision of ARV treatment, that is the biggest challenge across this region because most of that was being provided courtesy of the donor funding. Other quick highlights on the front page of The Citizen, they talk about the Ascension ceremony held for His Highness Prince Rahim Aga Khan V. So yes, we have His Highness the Aga Khan, but this time it's Prince Rahim V. Only 10% of El Nino repair funds released, says Bunge Committee. This is in Tanzania. And government pledges to review new container charges, matters business there. What is holding black vocational education reforms is also highlighted there on the front page of The Citizen in Tanzania. Na kuna maswala ya siasa pale. Mpango reveals why he decided against standing as CCM running mate. Yes. All right. Tutarudi maswala ya cartoon baadaye. So right now let's come back and take a look at the weather situation across the country. Tuelewe ni wapi kuna joto, wapi kuna baridi. So let's take a look at and we start with Isiolo because Isiolo kulikuwa na joto. Was it on Saturday or Friday?
On Saturday.
Yes, kulikuwa na joto kingi sana. Tuone kama imepungua. It is 19 degrees Celsius as we speak. It is slightly warming. Yes, slight warming expected over the next 3 days. It is quite warm, but it's going to get warmer in Isiolo.
Yeah.
Highs of 28 degrees Celsius, quite sunny throughout the day. A bit of cloud cover, but it's clear skies. 1.8 millimeters of rainfall expected. So yes, kambuka kidogo tu, you might not feel it.
Showers of blessings.
Oh yes, after the heat and as you prepare for the slight warming to come in the next 3 days.
Mpate baraka angalau.
Wengine mamako niko sure kuna joto.
Turkana, 25 degrees. It feels like 26. Na huku kuna joto, highs of 36 degrees. Let's see, cloud cover throughout the day. It will be sunny and precipitation 0.
All right. Kwingine kuna joto sana, Mombasa. And in Mombasa, it is 26 degrees. It's actually hotter than Turkana this morning. 26 degrees Celsius. Feels like 30. Yes. Highs of 31 degrees Celsius expected. A bit of manyunyu hapa na pale at around 1 p.m. 0.3 millimeters of rainfall. You will definitely not feel this. It'll dissolve too huko. But yeah, that's the situation in Mombasa. Let's take a look at Naivasha, where the IBC selection panel is currently centered. 12 degrees Celsius as we speak. Feels like 11. Quite chilly in Naivasha, I must add. Cloudy for the better part of the afternoon. Highs of 24 degrees. This is cold for Naivasha. Yes. But at least the morning, you'll have sunny intervals for the better part of the morning, which will give room for the cloud cover. But in as far as rainfall is concerned,
0.
usingoje anything hapo. And finally, Nairobi.
Nairobi, we are at 16 degrees. It feels like 15, highs of 26. This is comfortable weather, Fred. It will be cloudy throughout the day with a little bit of sunshine, and precipitation here is 0.5 millimeters.
All right, so maybe utasikia katone kwa kichwa hivi usistuke sana. That's as far as the weather situation is concerned. Let's take a look at the traffic situation in Nairobi. Ndio turudi tuangalie magazeti. So this is a map of the city with all the major tributaries into town, and you can see Pangani interchange already building up this early. It's very early, it's 10 minutes past 6, and it's already red, a stretch of red here at the Pangani interchange. That means today magari ni mingi coming from Thika Road and Kiambu Road, so do expect to spend some time there. I can see the expressway heading to, this is Uhuru Highway and part of Mombasa Road, but this is away from heading out of town. There's a bit of a yellow stretch there. I don't understand what's happening there. This is what I'm talking about. Areas around Nyayo Stadium getting a bit busy this morning. Along Jogoo Road, which is the other very busy tributary into town, Makadara, there's a long stretch of red there. But after that, it's green all the way into town. A bit of yellow around Marikiti area, nothing to worry about. It means getting into town is a bit smoother today. Mahali ingine nakuanga shida ni Kangundo Road, and it's very busy around areas around Mama Lucy Hospital, both heading towards town and heading the other way towards Kayole. It's getting very busy there. Pipeline, shida zao zile za kawaida. Langata Road looking good. The other major tributary, of course, Waiyaki way into town, nothing to report there. So that's the traffic situation in Nairobi. Nothing out of the ordinary this morning. We'll be back probably at 1:30 the hour. Tuone kama mambo itakuwa imegeuka.
That's right. Let's take a look at the quote of the day.
The road to success is never straight or simple. There will be moments when you stumble, but it's in those moments that you find your greatest strength. Embrace failure as a teacher and let it shape you into someone unstoppable.
Right, we start off with the standard this morning. House of Impunity, niliwaambia hii itachemka. Wale walikuwa hapa, some of the MPs were saying, nah, it's not a big deal. Nothing will happen. It happened. Yes. Maybe I can predict you. If I can predict for you, I can predict your life.
Kuliwaka.
Kuliwaka. I'm telling you. You can see they even have a picture there on the front page. Parliament in session, but you can see all the parliamentary orderlies there surrounding the mess, because walikuwa najua hii inaweza bebwa anytime. Kulikuwa kumeharibika. Kalinuka. In spite of a declaration on who has the numbers in Parliament, debate raged on the subject, with Speaker Moses Wetangula expected to rule on the matter before the decision is heard in an appellate court. So we have quotes here by Millie Odhiambo, Minority Whip, who has now declared herself the Majority Whip. The courts infer that because of the position you hold as Speaker and also as party leader of your party, it is not possible for you to be fair. Now, this was a direct jab at the Speaker. There's the issue of majority versus minority, but there's also the issue of, can the Speaker be a party leader?
Yes.
Yes. Kimani Ichung'wah, who's a majority leader, not so sure. He says he disagrees with the court because those members enjoy certain inalienable rights to associate with the political coalition they desire. He was talking about UDM members who were initially part of the Azimio coalition but jumped very fast into Kenya Kwanza immediately after elections. And also Junet Mohammed, who now considers himself the majority leader. He says, when we arrived here in Parliament after the elections, we arrived here knowing we are the majority and we had the numbers. The Speaker, Moses Wetangula, says, as Speaker, I do not debate, I do not vote. I hold a position of honor to preside over your proceedings.
Yes.
Utaona moto.
He said the court haina power ya kurule, ya say who is the majority and who is the minority. I decide.
Tutaona tu. Tutakuwa hapa. We shall be there no matter what.
Today in the afternoon, we will be there.
The other big headline on the front page of the Standard, Cabinet approves 4.2 trillion shilling budget. With a focus on lowering cost of living and expanding the tax base, the government intends to spend 3.1 trillion on recurrent expenses and 725.1 billion on development. That story is on page 2. This is what we expect to be tabled before the National Assembly. That's a budget policy statement as members embark on the budget-making process. The panel IEBC team to be in office by April. So this is a promise by the IEBC selection panel that they will have the IEBC ready and in office by April of this year. Ex-NYS clerk loses 500 million shillings properties, and Kenyans forget very fast. Unakumbuka the NYS scandal?
Yeah.
Kuna mtu alikuwa na property worth $500 million shillings. What Kenyans feel about their counties, that story is on page 6. In other dailies, they talk about how governors have been ranked, and we'll be looking at that.
Yeah.
Relief after banks lower interest rates, that's another story. And on the back page, Musiala emerges as key figure in Bayern's dream. That's as far as Champions League is concerned. So more games being played tonight. Club Brugge hosting Atalanta at 8:45. Monaco hosting Benfica at 11 p.m. At the same time, Celtic will be at home to Bayern Munich, and Feyenoord will be hosting AC Milan. And that player there, Jamal Musiala, he's 21 years of age and is causing quite some ripples in the UEFA Champions League. That's the standard today.
Right. Taifa leo kizaza bungeni na wabunge wa upinzani wakalia viti vilivyotengewa upande wa walio wengi wakitaja uamuzi wa korti kama sababu. Of course, we've talked about that jana kuliwaka. Na kizaza kilishuhudiwa bungeni jana baada ya wabunge wa mrengo wa walio wachache na viongozi wao kukalia viti vilivyotengewa upande wa walio wengi kufuatia uamuzi wa mahakama kuu siku ya Ijumaa. Habari nyingine ni kwamba hisia mseto kuhusu Jaji Maraga ameonekana akifanya vikao vya mashauriano na watu wa matabaka mbalimbali. Of course, they say anawania, he's shown interest in running for the presidency. Tunajua kwamba kuna Matiang'i hapo. There's also Marara Kebaso from the same region. We'll be there to see that. Mahabusu alivyojipatia shilingi milioni 7.6 bila jasho. Wow. Mtaalamu wa masuala ya fedha simulia alivyopunjwa na lagai kamiti. So ameshikwa tayari.
Watu wanafikirianga watu wa kamiti, wale wanakupigia simu wanakuambia maneno, wanafikiria watu wapati pesa. Jamaa alipata milioni 7.
Ni wadosi hao.
Pata milioni 7 na ako kamiti hajatoka.
Oh wow.
But he has 7.6 million shillings in the bank. Si anangojea akimaliza kifungo, anatoka na pesa iko tayari.
Oh wow. Anakuambia mtoto yuko mgonjwa, aenda pale Gertrude. They love that line. Unaenda unasimama hapo upati mtu. Na wanaougua Ebola Uganda wafika 9. Idadi ya waliobainishwa kuugua Ebola Uganda imepanda hadi watu 9 kutoka 3. Kule juu katika ukurasa huu wa Taifa Leo ni kwamba IEBC mpya kuwa afisini Aprili, jopo lasema, na makamishna wapya wa IEBC kuanza kazi kufikia Aprili tarehe 25. Taifa Leo hilo.
Tuangazie gazeti lingine. People Daily, Tower of Babel, still the debate about what's happening in the House of Parliament. That's the National Assembly. Emboldened by High Court ruling as the new MPs storm and occupy leadership positions on government side in Parliament, as embattled Wetangula vows to stay put. Yet I know that the debate even within UDA is that, they had always told him, can you dissolve Ford Kenya and join UDA. So by the way, he might not find the support that he's hoping to, even from his side of the political divide.
Itabidi ameacha moja.
Itabidi aachilie moja. Itabidi tu.
Yeah. Alarm over Kenya declining forest cover. That story is on page 8 of the People Daily.
Inside Ruto's 4.2 trillion 2024-2025 budget. This is a record budget. We've never seen this kind of figures in Kenya. Talking about maybe tukiongea kuhusu debt. Like, when it comes to budget, hatujafika hapa. 4.2 trillion. Quite an ambitious budget. We'll be looking at this also. Orengo spells out Raila options after AU contest. Yes, so even as we count down 4 days, 3 days to the AUC elections, walisema akipata sawa, akikosa sawa, these are the options. You can read them on page 5 of this paper. And vendors go digital for Valentine's deals. Yes, so say you don't need to walk kwa barabara ndo upate maua. You just log in somewhere na unaambiwa tuko na kila kitu.
Yes.
As well as in-depth analysis and opinion by thought leaders, some of them there on the front page of the People Daily.
The Star poll lays bare best performing governors, and we see the photo of these best performing governors, of course. On the top of the list is Muranga's Governor Irungu Kang'ata. We see Homa Bay's Gladys Wanga, Kisumu Anyang' Nyong'o, Trans Nzoia's George Natembeya, Busia's Paul Otuoma, and Siaya Governor James Orengo, Kakamega Fernandes Barasa, Sicily Barire of Embu. That story is on page 4 and 5.
You realize that most of those counties are from western part of Kenya. That's Trans Nzoia, Busia, Kakamega. Then from Nyanza we have Homa Bay, Kisumu, and Siaya. Now they don't tell us exactly if these are the best performing. They just have their faces on the front page. But the story is on pages 4 and 5.
Yes. Now the poll by Infotrack could give a hint of first-time governors who could have an easy ride in their re-election bid. According to that report, Governor Irungu Kang'ata of Murang'a ranks top with 52% score, followed by, of course, Gladys Wanga, who has 51%, Natembeya 48%, and Mutahi Kahiga of Nyeri 47%. All right, those are the top 4.
Have they listed the worst performing?
Of course they have, but let's take a look at them here. We'll come back to take a look at that but other top stories on the Star, we see farmers embrace use of rabbit urine as organic fertilizer. And by the way, you know, yesterday we did a segment on apple farming, and you know, that apple farming, I don't know what it is called. The type, it's called Wambugu apple farmers. And the manure that is used for those apples are rabbit urine.
Rabbit urine.
Rabbit
Kuna
urine.
mtu tu ana harvest rabbit urine.
Sasa hawa wanasema wako tu mahali, they have rabbits as well. So they're just somewhere, they're waiting to harvest this rabbit urine. Rabbit urine and water. So it links as well with this story that farmers are embracing use of rabbit urine as organic fertilizer across the country. Ruto in tight corner as Raila men take house majority roles. And we see a photo of Azimio Senator Enoch Wambua taking up majority position seat in the House.
Now, this is the most interesting part because the ruling by the court was about the National Assembly.
Yes.
Yet, even in the Senate, Azimio elected leaders were claiming that there cannot be a majority in the National Assembly and not in the Senate. So this is actually inside the Senate.
Yeah.
Lakini speaker aliwaambia hiyo court ruling, it was about the National Assembly. Kila mtu akae kwa kiti yake.
Interesting. That's the Star.
All right. Let's focus on the Daily Nation. This morning on the front page of the Daily Nation, they talk about SHA tycoons link in teachers' insurance wars. They ask if it's a scandal. Jayesh Umesh Saini. And you remember when former Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua said that there are 2 people who usually go to State House. Na akataja majina mawili. Kasema moja ni Jayesh, mwingine nimesahau jina. So here we have this Jayesh Umesh Saini. He's a beneficial owner of Medical Administrators Kenya Limited, MKL, and Bliss Healthcare Kenya Limited, which are at the center of the 55 billion teachers' medical insurance controversy that imploded recently after some hospitals withdrew services to beneficiaries and their families, citing pay arrears. The story is on page 4. So if you want details of why that teacher's plan for medical cover is not working, the Daily Nation has a story. National Treasury has failed to pay 9 billion shillings in premiums since September of 2024. Walimu hatafurahia sana hiyo maneno. Plus, as they continue covering the transition of the Aga Khan, we now have a picture of his successor, His Highness the Aga Khan V, addressing senior leaders representing the worldwide Ismail community on the occasion of his ascension ceremony yesterday at the Diwan in Lisbon, Portugal. This was the first occasion on which Aga Khan V was speaking to the international Ismaili community. So that's another story. Wetangula on rule on majority party today. The 4th session of the National Assembly started to a wrong footing, unable to reconstitute the House Business Committee that determines its calendar, as a reality of the court judgment that determined Azimio as a majority side in the House manifested. This came after Speaker Wetangula stayed the formation of the powerful committee pending his communication on the ruling, and he said he's going to make a communication today.
Yes.
All right. Your story pale how an inmate in committee conned me 7 million bob. And this is a financial expert who was conned. A financial expert stunned a city court by detailing how she lost more than 7.6 million shillings to an inmate at Committee Maximum Prison. The story is on page 12
Very
of
ironical.
the Daily Nation. Interesting.
irony kubwa.
Mimi nikagongwa hivyo na mimi ni financial expert nitanyamaza. All right. How your end debt doubled to 20 billion shillings in 2 years. That's a story on the back page of the Daily Nation as well. All right.
Let's take a look at the Business Daily. Deported Ruto ally wins affordable housing deal. Now, a company linked to a controversial Turkish businessman close to President William Ruto has won a multi-billion shilling deal to build affordable houses, making him one of the top beneficiaries of the state housing scheme. Now, MHOA Africa Limited, which is owned by Harun Aidin, is part of a joint venture expected to build at least 100,000 homes under the scheme, which is partially funded by the housing levy. He was deported from Kenya in 2021. Interesting. We see a photo there of Aga Khan V, who took over role of spiritual leader of Ismaili Muslims yesterday. On the ticker, Cusco ex-officials face arrest, asset seizures over fraud. Now, top executives of Cusco, they face arrest and asset seizure of cooking of financial statements and theft that put some 13.3 billion shillings belonging to depositors at risk. We covered this on Monday.
Yes,
yeah?
yes.
We did. Public procurement regulator will do well to go beyond warning and prosecute counties delaying payments. That story is on page 9 of the Business Daily, and that's the Business Daily.
Right. And that wraps up our newspaper review this morning. Let's take a look at the cartoons. Na cartoon imepotea wapi tena? Aha. We have a cartoon. This is a cartoon on the Standard today. Iko na jamaa hapo ule anasemanga lazima iwak.
Lazima iwak.
Lazima iwak. Akona degree pale, sijui kwa nini wanamwekea degree, ile kofia ya degree. Unajua huyu cartoon sana nataka kutuambia mambo mingi sana. Alafu inasema nini?
Mwenye macho
haambiwi tazama. The guy is about to score his second term. He's thinking about his second term as he plays with Nai. So he's already planning, and it was very curious that he was spotted on Monday at that national prayer for former Prime Minister Raila Odinga as he heads to the AUC elections this week. And he was there and very
supportive dancing.
What do you say? It was conspicuous there. Na akasema in 2 weeks time atawapatia direction. Asikuwe kama ule jamaa wa Mulima hajatupatia direction bado. Na jamaa wa Mulima ako kwa hii katuni ya
People Daily.
People Daily.
The Cold War begins, and this is a caricature of former President Uhuru Kenyatta akishikilia hapo the caricature of Fred Matiang'i. And we see a caricature of impeached Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua akishikilia pale caricature ya Kalonzo Musyoka. The Cold War begins. Nani akona nani?
Wao watu ni wa Mulima hao wenye wanashikilia watu wa kwingine.
Yes.
On the Daily Nation, yes, city politics once again. It's interesting that the cartoonists, at least 2 of them, are thinking about the same thing.
Yeah.
And we see a caricature of a former Prime Minister na amenyang'anya kakijana pale ile jazi. Anaenda anapatia, amecancel Governor Babu, anapatia Sakaja. Ule, lakini Sakaja ile gari anaendesha Nairobi County. Imeruka kutoka kwa cliff, ni kama inaenda kuanguka.
Yeah.
What are they saying?
Ona venye anaangalia jamani.
Babu Owino amebaki hapo anashangaa. Yaani hata kijana mtoto mdogo unamnyang'anya shati bwana. Rudisi ya mimi sati. That's the Daily Nation. And finally on the Star.
Musical chairs, minority, majority, conflicts in the National Assembly, and that is what we see here.
Look at this one, yeah. Papa wa Roma, the speaker, amekalia viti mbili. Moja ya speaker, ingine ya Ford Kenya. Na yeye ameweka mguu hapo
atoki.
Na amesema atui. He'll be giving a ruling today on the matter, especially on majority versus minority.
Yes.
I don't know if he'll give a ruling on his position as well of speaker, as well as party leader. That's a cartoon on the Star today. All right. So, just a reminder of the other conversations we'll be having this morning. Remember, from 10 a.m., It is Tasty Wednesday from 9 to 10. Ribeye steak by Duncan Kotoine, Chef Panama.
Matters love. Valentine's Day is around the corner. Who should be celebrated more, men or women? We'll be having Judith Gereshi, a wellness advocate and champions for women and vulnerable children rights.
Alongside this panel, discussing matters Valentine's. Mambo ya mapenzi. Meanwhile, on State of the Nation, just after the break, we're about to go into Beatrice Elachi, MP Dagoretti North, Geoffrey Ruku, MP Mbere North, and Jerry Maina, Woman Representative Kirinyaga County, will be in studio for this conversation, so do stand by for that.
Meanwhile, interact with us on our socials, TV47 Kenya on Facebook and YouTube, TV47 News KE on X. My handle is at Ann_Odida. The hashtag is Morning Cafe.
My X handle is at Fred Indipoli.
Stay with us.
Our world is changing every day, and so should we, for the better. Each week, we tackle the big why, the question that should be on everyone's minds. Why isn't this fixed yet? Deforestation, global warming, and the adverse effects of climate change. The future isn't just something that we inherit, it's something that we create. Join us on The Green Fix as we tell the stories of those who refuse to give up. When it comes to fixing the planet, there is no time to waste. Join me, Shiksha Arora, on Thursdays at 9 p.m. on The Green Fix as we look into the big why, you and I.
Are you ready to elevate your business game?
As long as you're earning something, there's always that opportunity to save. And you start with where you are.
Kama wewe ni mfanyabiashara, huwezi kaa bure, unajipanga taratibu vile inavyofaa.
Join us each week as we dive into the stories of the world's most driven entrepreneurs.
When you pay attention to detail, you get luxury items.
The Grind, where business meets brilliance. Tune in every Monday at 7:30 p.m. because your business deserves the best.
Hey there, friends. Welcome to Kids on the Block, where fun and imagination come alive. We dive into magical world filled with exciting adventures and awesome friends.
What position were you in?
I was number 2.
What position were you?
Number 1.
He decided to cross the bridge by his house and look for food on the other side.
We're going to do half cup of chocolate chips, and the other one, we're going to do half cup of the blueberries.
So, grab your imagination hats and get ready to explore with us. Join us every Saturday at 9 a.m. for new friends, amazing stories, and tons of laughter.
Join us as we explore the journeys of those who defy the odds and break barriers. We dive deep into the stories of triumph.
Sometimes when parenting a child with a special need or whatever disability, family life becomes a bit complicated and you may end up raising the child on your own.
Here, we inspire.
I have a farm which one we showcase with other dyslexic youths and autism how to farm.
Motivate.
It's never easy, but what we do, the best thing is to work with another parent who has an elder child than yours.
And break through the barriers one story at a time. Push your boundaries beyond the limit. Saturdays at 8 p.m.
Jiunge nasi tunapoangazia safari za viongozi bora, kutoka kwa ushindi mkubwa hadi masomo magumu.
Wakati wetu kwamba wasichana si wa kusoma, ni wa kuolewa, ng'ombe ipatikane, wazazi wakuwe watajiri.
Tunashughulikia yote.
I wish I were a better investor.
My parents taught me how to look for things for myself.
Tazama Mfahamu Kiongozi, ambapo kila kipindi kimejaa maarifa, mikakati na hadithi za kukuza azma yako.
For me to succeed, I have to fight.
Kila Alhamisi saa 1:30.
Our world is changing every day, and so should we, for the better. Each week, we tackle the
All right, welcome back. You're watching Morning Cafe on TV 47 with me, Fred Ndimuli. This is the Morning Cafe. Time for us to take a look at the big headlines this morning on State of the Nation. On the Star poll lays bare best performing governors. We'll be looking at that later. On the Daily Nation, Shah tycoons link in teachers' insurance wars. Also making mention of what's happening in the National Assembly. Wetangula to rule on majority party today. And that is a big story on the front page of the Standard, and they say House of Impunity. In spite of a declaration on who has the numbers in Parliament, debate raged on the subject, with Speaker Moses Wetangula expected to rule on the matter before the decision is heard in an appellate court. And we have a nice breakdown of who said what inside the National Assembly. Quite some dramatic scenes witnessed in the National Assembly yesterday. And we have one member of that house with us this morning, Jerry Maina, woman representative, Kirinyaga County. Good morning, karibu sana, TV47.
And Happy New Year.
Happy New Year
to everyone watching. I think this is my first time this year on
Yes.
TV47.
It's good to have you.
Always glad to be here.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, so I'm assuming you were in the National Assembly yesterday. We saw quite some scenes, and the picture on the front page of the Standard has the parliamentary orderlies surrounding the mess, meaning that there was some drama. Whenever they do that, they had anticipated some push and pull. What we understand is that the minority leader and the minority whip moved to the other side, crossed the aisle and occupied the seats reserved for majority leader and majority whip. Now, is there any consequence to the actions we saw yesterday beyond the general banter that we've seen members of the National Assembly engage in from time to time?
Yes, I was there, and you know, I did hear the banter and see the theatrics. And the Speaker will be making his ruling today. I do not expect it to be any different from the ruling he had done when the 13th Parliament was being convened for the first time. And, you know, all these arguments that we had yesterday, you know, the way we said things were ground. The truth of the matter is that the ruling is overtaken by events, and we know the developments politically that have happened in this nation is that ODM, which is the largest Azimio party, has joined government. We also know that the only two Azimio party members who were Raila Odinga and Martha Karua, one of them has already left and communicated and formally withdrawn. So I think these were just theatrics that we were seeing yesterday. I don't expect anything different from the Speaker's ruling today. I do not think even ODM wants to stir the waters. You know, we know that we saw Bandi go to finance. We saw Opio, who was the leader on the other side, move on to energy. So I don't think we'll see anything different. And personally, I felt there were other important things that maybe Parliament could have given attention to, given that it's the first time we are convening since we took a break last year.
Yet, even for individual members of the House, some of these positions are quite prestigious. Leader of majority, if you ever ascend to that position and you get an opportunity, even for the current minority leader, Junet Mohammed, definitely, even on a personal level, he would wish to sit on the majority leader's seat.
I think they are, and perhaps they would wish, but the situation right now does not allow for that. Because like I've said, ODM is quote unquote in government. You know, we have a broad-based, which I call bread-based government. So I don't see anything changing. This was just for the public, you know, just playing to the gallery. And ultimately, today, we will get the truth of the matter. Okay. And I think maybe perhaps if ODM would not have joined government, we'd have seen a different approach in regard to that. But then at the time when this matter was being filed, you remember the opposition at the time, ODM and Azimio coalition, was vehemently opposed to any government agenda. So I think we would have had quite an interesting parliament where the majority side is the opposition. It would have been something quite interesting to see how government business would have been run.
Mm-hmm. Plus, the other debate, now that you are convening for the fourth session of this 13th Parliament, is the fact that now you are reorganizing committees of the House and even the leadership, the main House Business Committee. This debate could affect that in a way, don't you think? If it persists.
I do think now this is an opportunity for maybe persons or members of parliament who are not perceived or who are not perceived to support the government or who are perceived to be maybe allies of the former deputy president. It's a time for them to crack the whip, and we're ready for it, you know, because I always say that each decision has a consequence and you must be willing to pay the price, and that's how government works. So for me, I think this is an opportunity for them now to include more Azimio allied members of parliament in powerful positions, and we'll also see perhaps some reorganization in regard to how the powers that be feel about who is allied to who. So we will see a lot of that. We'll see quite a number of changes. Of course, rumor mill has it that anyone allied to Gachagua who held chairperson position will be kicked out.
You're going to lose your position in certain committees.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, away from the debate about the musical chairs around the majority-minority, is the other issue about the Speaker of the National Assembly. And yesterday, one of the headlines described him in not so nice words. They said biased speaker. Basically, over the rulings he made, one that has been you may say, overtaken by events, but the court pronounced itself on the matter. And definitely that would indicate that there is some sense of bias from the Speaker. There's also his position as both leader of the Ford Kenya Party and Speaker of the National Assembly. What is your view of that?
I think I've even expressed myself on the matter in regard to the ruling pertaining who was a majority at the time we were forming or convening the 13th Parliament for the first time. And what happened is that quite a number of parties had bolted out of coalition agreements that they were in, but had not formalized the process with the Register of Political Parties. And because apparently they were claiming intimidation from the then government at the time, you know, there was a transition period. Some of them had even bolted out 3 months prior to the general election of 2022. So I do believe that in good faith, the Speaker made that ruling on the fact and the strength of freedom of association. But I also feel that the procedure was not followed, the due process was not followed. So for me, I think it's a catch-22 situation for the Speaker of the National Assembly. You know, he also did have his affiliation. You know, we know that he's still the lead, strong affiliation. We know that he's still the leader of Ford Kenya. And so I do not really fault him in that, because at the end of the day, you know, Parliament has political inclinations of some sort, and that's why you see even in the event of voting, members have a certain inclination in regard to their parties. So perhaps the bias comes in regard to his strong affiliation. And maybe looking at it from the outside, you know, he is supposed to be this figure who is very neutral and who is making decisions that are not influenced by his own personal convictions in regard to his alliances. But, well, you know, it plays out at some point.
But when a court pronounces itself on something like this, definitely puts the speaker in an awkward position, that he's no longer seen as a neutral arbiter. The fact that he's still a senior principal within the ruling coalition as a party leader of Ford Kenya. He has refused to relinquish that position. We've seen in the other house, the Senate, the speaker there was also a party leader, but he seems to have stepped back from that position. Definitely there will be push, even from UDA. I know there is a push for most parties to fold and merge into a bigger UDA party. Don't you think that this also works for UDA, that the speaker is now being pushed to a certain corner that could benefit the party?
I think that behind the scenes, you know, where things are being done and where, you know, conversations are happening, I think perhaps there's a conversation that UDA is looking at, you know, that they can angle to now have the speaker formally relinquish his role as a party leader and perhaps now merge into the larger UDA party. But I know he's very resolute. Of course, he's very resolute about maintaining the party, of course, for political reasons. And, you know, the political climate in this country is that anyone can switch up on you anytime. So, of course, at the end of the day, you also have to look out for yourself. So I think that's what the speaker is merely doing.
I know it's a catch-22 situation for you when you're talking about the Speaker of the National Assembly as a member. But looking at the kind of individuals who sat on that position, rarely have we seen accusations of bias. In one occasion or two, but looking at people like Kenneth Marende, Francis Ole Kaparo, some who, yes, came to that position courtesy of some political affiliation, but once they occupied the seat of Speaker, they acted very well as neutral arbiters. But when it comes to the current Speaker, probably, and in the 12th Parliament, the other Speaker, we've seen this tendency where we are getting very partisan speakers. Do you agree that that could be a problem going forward?
What I think is that everyone brings their individuality into leadership, you know. Just like in Kirinyaga County, we've heard former women reps. And at the end of the day, it narrows down to your personal convictions and where you draw the line. So I think, like you said, of course, it's very difficult, and I have to maintain a balance when discussing the Speaker of the National Assembly. But I do think that, given that this is the first Parliament that I have been actively in, I think for a lot of those decisions, he was really caught in between. It was just a catch-22 situation, you know. It was a damned if you do and damned if you don't. So, like I've said, we have seen a very, very strange Parliament where the opposition is the majority in Parliament. You know, we have government business to table. Kenya Kwanza government had the plan. So I think for him, he was just caught up in the situation.
Okay, some more accusations have been leveled against the Deputy Speaker, also along the same line, partisanship. And one wonders, is this a lopsided house? That you have the Speaker, his deputy, all supporting the executive, the minority side, the biggest party on the minority side, moving to government, and then where are the checks and balances?
I think Parliament as an institution, as we know it, the independence is a mirage. The dignity is gone. We can't even discuss that because we did see both the Speaker and the Deputy Speaker come out strongly even to give a position on how the House was going to vote before the impeachment of the former Deputy President was even tabled and heard. So I think those are things that we have to agree that we really do not have a Parliament that we can say we are proud of, that can do the checks and balances that were supposed to be done in regard to their oversight role. So we're quite in a tricky situation, and seeing now the opposition crossover, well.
All right. Talk about the drama that was witnessed yesterday inside the National Assembly. It is part of the stories filed here on TV47 about the broad-based standoff. Let's watch that story. Subject of some cartoons. The cartoon on the Star, for example, talks about the musical chairs inside Parliament in as far as majority and minority are concerned, as well as we have a caricature of the Speaker sitting on 2 seats with very long legs. This cartoon is on page 3 of the Star. Do we have the story ready? All right. Still talking about the National Assembly, we'll get the story later. The other thing we do expect is a tabling of the budget policy statements. That is among the top agenda of the National Assembly. But before we get to that discussion, let's watch the drama that took place in the National Assembly yesterday.
Order! Take your seats!
The supremacy battle between Kenya Kwanza and Azimio on who is a majority and minority in the National Assembly forced Parliament to suspend normal House business after Azimio MPs occupied the Kenya Kwanza side, claiming they are the majority in the wake of last week's High Court ruling.
Our majority leader as Honorable Junet Mohammed and Honorable Robert Mbui.
The only solution to this problem is to go to appeal. Until the appeal overturns this matter, I shall be recognized as the majority leader of the Republic of Kenya.
The Azimio coalition also told National Assembly Speaker Moses Wetangula to step aside and allow his deputy Gladys Bosholei to take over, citing conflict of interest, given the Speaker is a Ford Kenya party leader, an issue also raised by the court.
Mr. Speaker, I therefore humbly request you to step down and mandate Honorable Gladys Bosholei to take over in discharging the functions as the Speaker because of your conflict of interest.
I am a senior lawyer in this country, and I'm your senior Millie Odhiambo. I have read that judgment with a tooth comb, and there's nowhere it requires the Speaker to do what you are saying. Majority Leader. Kimani Ichung'wah.
Kenya Kwanza side, led by Majority Leader Kimani Ichung'wah, went on the defensive, terming the coalition numbers in Parliament as a moving target, given the political realignments that have taken place in the Azimio parties that crossed to Kenya Kwanza after the elections.
Myself, in respect of that court ruling, today I have appeared here and decided to sit with my brother, Honorable Junet, wherever I can sit, Honorable Speaker, because that ruling being annulled now calls on you to now look at the facts as they are today and numbers as they are.
Ahead of the Speaker's ruling on Wednesday afternoon, questions emerged on the fate of the House Business Committee, which sets the House agenda and was to be approved on Tuesday as Parliament kicked off its 4th session, the constitution of House committees, and passed decisions by the House. Apul Kamau, TV47.
So those were the scenes inside the National Assembly yesterday. Very interesting to see that kind of movement. Curiously, it also happened in the Senate, despite the fact that the court ruling had no mention of the Senate, that the battle over who holds a majority and minority positions in Parliament spilled over to the Senate, with Azimio-affiliated senators insisting that the recent High Court ruling declaring Azimio the majority coalition should apply to both houses. Allow me to welcome in studio Geoffrey Ruku, MP Mbeere North. Ruku, it's good to have you in studio this morning. I'm assuming you are in the National Assembly yesterday. What do you make of this debate over who should be the majority vis-a-vis minority in the National Assembly?
I think the decision is very, very easy to make because it is all guided by the Registrar of Political Parties. And there is a file as far as from the Registrar of Political Parties on formation of coalitions. And the law allows pre-election coalition and post-election coalitions. So all these documents are with the Registrar of Political Parties. The general political parties are forwarded a file with the list of all the coalition members. This document was tabled yesterday by the Deputy Speaker, Honorable Bosch Sharei. So I think it's a very straightforward answer in terms of Speaker ruling today at 2:30 p.m.
All right.
But having said that, also it is important to note that our courts need to, when they certify a matter urgent, they need to be making a ruling with a matter of urgency. Because probably during the opening of the 13th Parliament, probably as me was a majority in the House, maybe. So ruling should be able to be coming out from our courts as quickly as possible, because as you say, as they say, justice delayed is justice denied.
Okay, but that pronouncement by the court, whether or not overtaken by events, seems to suggest that the current person who sits as Speaker and some of the decisions that he has made, including that ruling on who's majority, who's minority, back then when the 13th Parliament was being formed, that there was a sense of bias because of his political affiliation. And yesterday, one of the dailies had a two-word headline, biased Speaker. Do you agree with that?
There is the doctrine of separation of powers, that Parliament is an independent institution, one arm of government, just as judiciary and the executive. And court cannot stop the day-to-day proceedings of the Parliament. Parliament cannot, judiciary cannot dictate what the Speaker has to, the kind of the ruling which the Speaker has to make. And the Speaker makes the ruling in his own wisdom. And we have Moses Wetangula, who is a very senior lawyer in the Republic of Kenya, a man with huge experience in terms of both National Assembly and the Senate. He has been around for quite some time. So we expect him to give a very fair ruling, which is guided by one, the standing orders of the National Assembly, and of course the law which is in place.
But the general public does not feel that the Speaker is
An example of Chap Chap, an example of BAS, and formed, joined these other coalition.
All right. So the main agenda of the National Assembly in this new session, after coming back from that long break, will be the budget-making process. Treasury is expected to table the budget policy statement. I don't know now if this will delay because of the kind of drama that we witnessed in the House. And I want us now to take a look at that budget-making process. It is also part of the stories filed at TV47, the budgeting for financial year 2025-2026. So that just to set the stage for this discussion, let's have that story.
The Cabinet has announced the approval of a massive 4.2 trillion shillings budget for the financial year 2025-2026, which is set to take effect once Parliament grants its approval. Out of the 4.2 trillion shillings, 3.1 trillion shillings will be allocated for recurrent spending, 725 billion shillings will go towards development, 436.7 billion shillings will be allocated for county transfers, and 5 billion shillings will be set aside for contingency funds. The budget policy statement focuses on the government's economic priorities, putting emphasis on sustainable growth, fiscal stability, and inclusive green development. President Ruto's administration outlined key 6 priorities to maintain economic momentum, which include reducing the cost of living, eradicating hunger, creating jobs, expanding the tax base, improving foreign exchange balances, and fostering inclusive growth. To achieve these goals, the government plans to focus on expenditure rationalization, revenue mobilization, and enhanced tax compliance. A medium-term revenue strategy will guide tax reforms, aiming to ensure efficiency, fairness, and progressivity, while balancing revenue generation with social protection. The Cabinet has introduced a zero-based budgeting system to ensure that all expenses are justified for each new financial year, rather than carrying over from the previous period. The system is designed to improve cash flow and expand public-private partnership PPPs in public service delivery. In another major move, the Cabinet has approved an additional 344.8 billion shillings in expenditures to fund critical projects. The approval, according to the dispatch, seeks to bridge the gap left by the withdrawal of the Finance Bill 2024. Paul Kirobi, TV47, Nairobi.
It is also a main headline of the front page of the Standard. Cabinet approves a 4.2 trillion shilling budget. Honorable Njeri Maina, the issue of the budget-making process was part of the biggest discussions we had last year. It is what caused a huge change, a radical shift in how this government works, leading to even the formation of the broad-based government. The fact that Kenyans now understand the budget-making process more means that this time round there'll be a lot of scrutiny in this process. Is the 13th Parliament prepared this time round for any eventuality? Last year, mulikuwa pabaya.
You know, when you ask whether Parliament is prepared, I do not even know how to respond to that question, because the 13th Parliament, in the last session, or rather the third session last year, was very much alive and aware to the situation that the finance bill had been rejected by Kenyans. We saw members of constituencies, members of county who were in the National Assembly like myself, proceed to vote for the finance bill. And we all know what it led to, you know, the June 25th protests, running down of Parliament, a very shocking event in the history of Kenya. And that shows how much representative democracy must be respected, because the Constitution does outline that sovereign power belongs to the people of Kenya. And I think this budget-making process is a call, awakening call, and perhaps, you know, a measure to see whether now the 13th Parliament has come alive to their exercise of duty and ensuring that they walk the journey with the public, so that, quote unquote, the people of Kirinyaga County that I represent are factored in, that I walk them through the tax measures that will be perhaps introduced, and how they will impact them, why they are being put in place. Because for a long time, I think Kenyans were not really involved in the nitty-gritties of the budget-making process and questioning the impact of the same on the economy. So for me and my colleagues, and I'm glad that Ruku is here today, it is a call to reevaluate and introspect on the events of last year and make sure that that doesn't happen again, because we all know as leaders, we represent people and we consult them from time to time. So I do believe that last year members of parliament were aware that the finance bill was unpopular, grossly unpopular, but proceeded.
And that's a concern, because last year members of parliament, and this is probably why the precincts of parliament were breached, is that the feeling from the general public is that members of the National Assembly simply do not listen to the public, that there was general discontent about the finance bill, yet members still voted for the same, only clapping for the president after he rejected it. And that kind of picture left many people wondering, are the members of the National Assembly really representative of the people?
You know, I do recall having reservations and communicating the same to members of my party. And of course now being singled out and being seen as anti-government at the time. And I really didn't, you know, it's surprised that I have been ready to pay, because I was elected by the people of Kenya to represent their interests, not my interests or my thoughts. And I have to be consulting them from time to time on how I should represent them in the National Assembly, and also having a conversation with them and guiding them where I'm able to as a leader. And that is why I voted no for the finance bill 2024, because I was aware. So I am calling on other members of parliament to walk the journey with their constituents. Let us represent the true feelings of the Kenyan people in the National Assembly in regard to this year's finance bill. I'm hoping that we'll see a lot of relief for Kenyans. You know, we'll see a lot of relief in regard to the payslip, where around 47% is going to government taxes, you know, and out here you still have to pay the 16% VAT. So Kenyans are constrained on expenditure. You know, the cost of housing is only going high, the cost of living is high, and the salaries are not increasing, they're just decreasing. So
will it really change? That's the question. Will the workings of the National Assembly in the budget-making process change significantly from what we saw last year?
I don't want to preempt, and I don't want to paint my colleagues in bad light, because it would be unbecoming of me. I'm just saying that I am calling upon them to do that. And it narrows down to the individual members of parliament. I'm glad Roku is here, so maybe he can commit to that. I have personally committed to that. I did that in the last year finance bill to represent the true interest of the people.
Right. Bwana Ruku, these are looking at a 4.2 trillion shilling budget. This is a record figure. We've never seen anything like this. The previous budget was 3.8 against a revenue collection of about, and they're being very hopeful, 3.5 trillion. We've seen the KRA not meeting its target for the, I think, the last 3 quarters. This is very ambitious and could force the government and Kenyans to tighten their budgets further, meaning that probably we expect more taxation measures. This is a kind of budget that many Kenyans are scared of. Now it's your turn as a member of parliament to scrutinize this proposal by the Treasury. Are you confident that this time round the members of the National Assembly will do justice to the budget-making process?
I think we are up to task as far as doing what is right, doing justice to this process. It is important to note that there is aim with the budget policy statement or the budget making process. And more so this year, 2025, there is a critical aim in terms of having strategic priorities and fiscal policies in the upcoming financial year. So that is extremely important. I'm also taking care of what this government has been championing, that is the bottom-up economic transformation agenda. Their aims as far as the bottom-up economic transformation agenda is concerned which mainly to focus on enhancement of the economic growth, more so focusing on smallholder agricultural sector, which is key because, you know, this economy, to a greater extent, angers on the agricultural sector. As smallholder agricultural farmers are extremely important in our rural areas. Remember, not every family or household go out there to buy rice, to buy beans, to buy maize. The way you do in when you are living here in Nairobi, you go to supermarket. In our villages, especially where I represent, Better North is composed of so many villages. There are no supermarket in those villages. So the people there, the household there, depend on their farms, what they get from the farms. So the enhancement of this is extremely important. And that is what the budget process, making process looks at. And of course, there are key objectives which we are looking at as far as this year 2025 budget policy statement is concerned. One of them is to reduce the cost of living. Of course, Kenyans have been complaining as the cost of living is going up day by day. We are saying that there's economic growth of 5%. But have you felt that economic growth in your pocket? No. So there must be strategies to reduce the cost of living, which are going to be anchored in this year's budget. Also, this government has made a very huge stride as far as the eradicating of hunger is concerned. Remember, at the moment, there's no sugar which we are importing. There is no maize which we are importing. There is no beans which we are importing, because we are able to have enough production. And this did not just come out of those better rains. It is out of the policies which this government has put in place. Okay. So how do we maintain that? We have to ensure this is something which is going to be sustainable, year in, year out. So ensuring that we eradicate hunger in this country is an extremely important component to be in our
the
budget.
biggest concern Kenyans
Creating
have
jobs
is the
also.
issue of taxation, because that has been the key.
That's why I'm coming.
Yes.
Creating jobs and also expanding tax base.
My concern is that members of parliament last year conducted public participation and they were told these taxes are punitive. They did nothing. In fact, they rubber-stamped that despite general sentiment by the members of the public. Are we saying that this time around that will change? Because Kenyans are still complaining of the same.
We have to expand the tax base. Because there is a notion, or not even a notion, the way we have been taxing Kenyans, it has been consistent from the year 1963 up to now. This is the time you are trying to stir demand, you know, to change the strategies of correcting taxes. Because we have been taxing water, beer, cigarette, juice, the salary. That has been a very normal way, you know, the usual way of collecting taxes. We have to be more innovative in this government on expanding tax base. For us to be able to expand tax base, my brother, also we, members of parliament, has a key role to play. Because you have to create laws or registrations which gives a government a space to tax. And I give an example. We have virtual assets trade in the Republic of Kenya. Not only in the Republic of Kenya, but globally. People are trading crypto assets. How much money do we collect from that space as a people of the Republic of Kenya? In the year 2023, the information which is available is that the trade, the virtual asset trade, generated, the value of the trade was about $20 billion in the Republic of Kenya. $20 billion is a huge amount of money. But out of that trade, Kenyan government did not get a coin, not even a single dollar. Why? Because we don't have laws regulating the virtual asset trade or space. So who should come up with such kind of a law? or regulation. It is us, members of parliament. It is me, it is Acheri, it is the other, it is the Rido majority. So we have a responsibility to ensure we expand the tax base in an innovative way, which is not going to injure the common man.
What about
because when you talk about
relief for the already overburdened taxpayers, mainly those of the payslips, because that remains a big issue. And people are hoping that probably the National Assembly is alive to this issue.
If you listen to the CS Treasury explaining in terms of, because we have a section of leaders who are saying, yes, Kenyans are, payslips are being taxed in a serious manner, which I accept, because if you look at the amount of money you are paying for SHA, there is a huge amount of money depending on the scale of your salary, okay? And this is not something which you are paying previously. It has impacted in a serious manner as far as your payslip is concerned. Of course, there was no housing levy, but look at what housing levy has done. Already the amount reinvested, the housing levy, 20 billion Kenyan shilling, which has been reinvested in
Treasury bills.
Treasury bill, has generated 46 billion Kenyan shilling, which this money is going to be used in a more proper manner to get our contractors back to work, to get to pay our pending bills, because we have huge amount of pending bills which have not been paid. Kenyans who supplied different government organizations with 1 million, 2 million, whatever, have not been paid. Government has committed to ensure it's going to pay this month and the month of March. So we have to be innovative enough in terms of getting ourselves in the hole which we are in as a nation.
But the feeling is that, Njeri, that a lot of what we see in the National Assembly, especially now in the broad-based working arrangement, is that anything the executive says, including this proposal by Treasury, passes as it is, and you have the numbers, you don't need to argue about it. And I'm wondering what will be so different, because this proposal by Treasury might just pass unscrutinized by the National Assembly. Do you have a feeling, you're confident that there'll be anything different this time around?
Now that you've asked for my opinion on that, I don't think the bread-based government has anything new to offer Kenyans. And seeing how Parliament voted in regard to the 2024 finance bill, when we did not have the arrangement that is now in place, it will be interesting to see. I'm very much interested in seeing what the likes of, my good friend Millie Odhiambo will be propagating on the floor. We know now that Mbadi was vehemently opposed to the finance bill of 2024. He's now the one who's, in the mix and the one cooking the broth for this year's finance bill. So it's going to be quite interesting. I think we will see now individual members, their convictions, whether they were actually voting no at the time because they were in quote-unquote opposition at the time, the ODM members of parliament, or whether they will actually listen to what their constituents want and vote accordingly, whether yes or no. I don't want to preempt because I think Ruku might be privy to what Kenya Kwanza will be working on. And I have said that I am not, because by the time I voted no for the finance bill, I was already kicked out of the Kenya Kwanza, or rather pro-government UDA groups. So for me, I think, I don't think there's anything new we'll offer. We've seen that we actually have a very higher budget than what we had last year.
Does it worry you that the number keeps getting bigger, that we are talking about being in dire straits? We're talking about, the president last year was talking about even possible austerity measures, but year on year we are seeing the budget just ballooning, yet our revenue collection is not growing.
What bothers me is that the recurrent expenditure is taking a huge chunk of that amount. So Kenyans will not feel any development translating in what we call return on interest. So on investment. So Kenyans, when they pay taxes, they expect that healthcare will be running smoothly. They expect that we will have infrastructure for schools and roads. They expect that in regard to government investments and the economy will be flowing freely. So for me, I don't think we will see a lot of changes, but like I've said, I don't want to preempt, and I would not want to say or decide before I see what will be tabled on the floor of Parliament.
All right. But Naruku, what happened to the plans for austerity, reducing the public wage bill and all these things that the president was talking about? Because the issue was debt. And he said that we are in a fix, we're in a very bad position. That's why we need all these taxation measures. Yet we are seeing the budget increasing every year. Doesn't this go against what the president was talking about last year?
Idumuri, this government has committed to do what we call fiscal consolidation. Fiscal consolidation in terms of reducing public debt and enhancing revenue mobilization and taking advantage or leveraging on technology. If you look at KRA data of the month of in December, where KRA collected 74.4 billion in customs taxes. But in the month of January, KRA has collected 82.5 billion Kenya shilling in customs duties. So the efficiency in terms of our revenue collection, in terms of tax administration, is what we are saying, and this administration is saying, is going to keep on enhancing. There must be a lot of restructuring as far as KRA is concerned to make it more efficient, to make it more well-aligned, and to ensure the process of collecting taxes, you are not punishing the taxpayers. Because there's time when it has reached a point whereby KRA seems to be that organization which can even be weaponized to punish business people, to punish companies. And we witnessed several of them in the previous administration. And it should not be like that. It should be in a way that all of us are enjoying and we have an obligation to pay our taxes.
Yet we've seen KRA from time to time reporting not meeting their targets. Like the last quarter.
That is now changing.
That's a concern we have
for
a budget this big.
That is now changing, and I'm giving you data of this month. You know, that's over surplus of and performance rate of 110%. You compare the month of December and the month of January. So in other words, the fiscal consolidation is very, very important, and that is what is being enhanced. And of course, to reduce the public debt. Remember, from the fiscal deficit of last year moved from, I'm forgetting the actual data, but from 5-point-something% to 4-point-something%. So we are reducing the fiscal deficit in a gradual manner up to a level where it will be manageable. But also, as I have said, we have to ensure expanding of tax base is key. Because in Dumuri, there's no way, there are no two ways on providing ourselves with services. We need our hospitals, we need our schools, we need our roads, we need our security, we need water. There must be sources of money to ensure that is done. But having said that, Idumuri, still in this government, we still have wasteful spending. Wasteful spending in the sense that we have our parastatal hands, we have our government directors who are entering into contracts which are not properly administered in terms of implementation. There's no proper monitoring and evaluation to ensure there is value for money in terms of the works which are being done. So in the process, work is not finished on time. When that is not achieved, the cost of that project goes up. Once the cost of that project goes up, the budget which was set for that work to be completed is depleted. Once it is depleted, the project stalls. Once the project stalls, the interest starts accruing. Once the interest accrue, no money to pay.
Right.
The contractor goes to court, is awarded damages. So there is that cycle of having inefficient managers in our institution. And we have to check that.
The president himself talked about government efficiency last year when he was talking about austerity, even in terms of reducing the public wage bill. Yet, yes, he talked about it, and that was it. Beyond that talk, we've not seen any action. Talk about inefficiencies that exist within government. The president was well aware about this.
In this case,
a year later, nothing has happened.
In this case, I don't think it's the president. I think it's the end of public service. Who should be able to run a very efficient public service. He should be able to put all the PSs, all the directors, all the heads of parastatals in this country on their toes. They should be able to run a very efficient public service. We saw Mudaura, the former end of public service during President Kibaki's administration. He ran a very efficient public service. It's something that can be achieved. So far, in Muri, we don't have a very efficient public service.
Yes, and when you increase the budget from 3.8 trillion to 4.2 trillion shillings, are you not just giving room for these government inefficiencies to persist, Jerry? Because we are seeing from the budget, actually beyond 3.1 trillion shillings is going to recurrent expenditure, yes? The amount set out for development is actually more or less what you're going to seek from other sources beyond the revenue collected, definitely through borrowing and other means. There appears to be a disconnect here when the government is talking about efficiency and austerity measures and the figures they're talking about.
I don't think there's ever been an intention to slim down government, and we've seen that because the persons who are in power and capable of doing so are very much well aware of the situation. And even when Ruko here blames the head of public service, Felix Koskei, he does not work in a vacuum, you know? At the end of the day, the buck stops with the president. He is the top executive in government. He is the one who committed to Kenyans. He's the one who has a 5-year contract with the Kenyan people. So at the end of the day, you know, whether he has delegated people to do certain duties, if he feels perhaps, or if the feeling in Kenya Kwanza is that they're not doing what they're supposed to be doing, then he gets people who can deliver to the Kenyan populace. So for me, I think it is just, we're just playing, you know, a mind game with Kenyans, telling them we're going to slim down expenditure, but we actually are not. Because if you see over 3 trillion going to recurrent expenditure, it should be a very worrying trend. What is left for development is a measly amount. And we still, Kenyans feel that 2.5 years into this government, there's not much that has been achieved that can translate or be felt in terms of reinvigorating the economy and main or major infrastructure projects. So for me, I think we're not being honest with the Kenyan people when we say we want to trim down government. You know, we know that we introduced devolution in the advent of the 2010 Constitution. Should we now reevaluate whether this is actually working for Kenyans? Is devolved healthcare working for Kenyans? Is it not working for Kenyans? Why do we have to spend monies in duplication of duties where you have a CEC, you have a chief officer, you know, all these roles that can be, we need to have a conversation, a genuine one, and put it out to the Kenyan people, tell them perhaps we might need to reevaluate our decisions on expanding government, and did we really devolve services, or did we just devolve, you know, more opportunities for people to engage in corruption and wanton waste of public resources?
All right. And talking about devolution from this budget, and I'm just looking at the highlights as written down in this newspaper, county governments equitable share, 405 billion shillings, which is a huge amount of money. There's almost slightly more than 10% of the entire budget going to counties. On the front page of the Star, we have a poll that's laying bare best performing governors. And we have people like Murang'a Governor Irungu Kang'ata, Homa Bay's Gladys Wanga, Trans Nzoia's George Natembeya, and others. The story is on page 4 and 5 of the Star. It talks about this InfoTrack poll, ranking governors' performance, and on the other hand, also ranking members of parliament. But I want to concentrate on the devolved units first, Bwana Ruku. Are we getting value for money here? Because we have a very expensive form of government, which is resource heavy. But are we getting value for money?
Idimuri is good for us as Kenyans to accept that we gifted ourselves a very expensive constitution. The constitution structure which is there is an expensive. We have 47 counties which has to be facilitated. We have a huge number of members of parliament. We have senators. So we have this constitution which we gifted ourselves. We have many independent commissions which also are independent. Constitutional commissions which have to be facilitated by the Constitution. And I think also at the end of every 10 years, we should be having a Constitution audit to see how it has helped us to manage our public affairs, social affairs within a period of 1 decade, and to see whether we are in the right direction. This is not something that we are doing as Kenyans, because already more than 10 years have lapsed since we gifted ourselves this constitution. We have not done that kind of an audit as a people. So we have to bear with that. So for us to be able to maintain this constitution and take care of our public affairs, we have to be extremely prudent in terms of how we spend the public resources. We have to be prudent, we have to be very efficient in terms of spending the little amount of money we are collecting from taxpayers. And of course, where money is spent in a wrong manner, there should be punishment. And not only punishment, but very painful punishment. Taxpayers' money should be spent in the most appropriate way. But it is us who can gift ourselves this kind of punishment if money is spent in the wrong manner. I have been in Parliament for 2.5 years now with my colleague here. I don't think there's anybody who has come up with a law of hanging in case you are caught spending taxes in the wrong manner. I think that's the law which you require in this country, where if you are caught in corruption, there should be the time frame on how many years or months the case should stay, and the punishment. There should be no fine. There should no life imprisonment. There should be. We have quite a number of countries in this country, in this world, where when you are caught by, in corruption, you are hanged.
China, for example.
China is one of them. So we should be able to gift ourselves very punitive, so that we be able to run our affairs in the most appropriate way.
Yet there are some counties, and they're being used as examples of probably prudent use of public resources in terms of performance. And they've ranked Murang'a Governor Irungu Kang'ata as the top with 52% score. 52% is a C or a C minus, meaning that even the best of our governors is not really up to task.
Idimuri, as we talk about governor, there's something you allow me just to mention a little bit. I take you back in terms of budget. Why I think Kenya Kwanza administration or the president, the principal, the guy who is leading this process is doing his task, and why all of us we have to do our bit. The president is doing his bit. me as a member of parliament, I have to do also my bit. I have to be held accountable.
That's a concern that the National Assembly will not do anything apart from what the president
I have
wants.
to be held accountable. For instance, Muri should be asking me, why is it that I have not come up with a law to hang whoever is going to be corrupt? Why is it Gasheri has not forwarded a law of hanging whoever is going to be corrupt? We should be able to do our bit.
Yes, because the issue is on that budget, and now that you've taken us to the budget, back to the budget issue, the Gen Z revolution, if I may call it that, still insists that their concerns were never addressed. Yes, they came out and they called out the National Assembly, specifically the National Assembly, on its conduct in the budget-making process. We're not seeing anything different. The Gen Z's concerns are still alive.
Those concerns are being taken care of, and you will see them once the budget policy statement is stapled. One of them is fiscal responsibility. The debt management is well taken, is well anchored in that budget policy statement. The other thing is expenditure control. This thing of spending the way we want, it is taken care of that. There are measures on how we are going to control our expenditure. The other thing also is zero-based budgeting process, that to ensure every expense is justified. Every expense that the government is going to incur is properly justified. It's not a question of just thinking, let's put this for this and that. There must be justification. The other, which is also very key, is implementation of budget investment management information system. Operationalization of that, so that we can digitize the budget implementation process. The digital transformation is going to be key moving forward, and this is going to be achieved through operationalization of public investment management information system.
Okay.
Based on this budget policy. That is extremely key.
Communication was a big
problem. That is extremely key.
And we saw the Treasury CS before Parliament even reconvened, even organizing some public barazas trying to communicate the same. Do you think that's enough to dissuade actions like the ones we saw last year by the Gen Z revolution? Are you confident enough that this time round, because public participation is a key function of the National Assembly, you conducted public participation last year, yet those views were not taken into account. These are some of the complaints that are there. Are you confident that this time round, for the National Assembly and as far as collecting public views on this process, that it will actually be consequential?
Public participation has not been clearly defined in the Kenyan perspective. And oftentimes you find that when Parliament or government agencies are engaging with the public in regard to that, it is sort of like, just like a box that you can check. And you see that is why we had a major issue with the 2024 finance bill. And oftentimes, because I have engaged as a member of the National Assembly in public participation, I have attended public participation by several committees, you find that it is, the core agenda is not to get the public view, it is to legitimize what Parliament wants to pass. So it is done in the perspective of ensuring that, say perhaps my committee is doing a public participation in Kirinyaga, my committee wants to impose their decision and use the public exercise to legitimize what they're doing. So they're actually telling the voters, they're not asking them, what do you want us to do? And that is why we had such a massive issue with the 2024 finance bill, even though the committee, relevant committee, alleged that it conducted public participation. Also, we must ask ourselves, what is the scale of public participation that we ought to conduct? Kenyans are very sensitized on these matters. Social media has opened a new era of engagement. People are breaking down the budget-making process on TikTok.
Even in vernacular.
Even in vernacular languages. So even an 80-year-old grandmother in Kebingoti, Kirinyaga County, is able to, understand the information and interpret it for themselves. So we have to scale the level of public participation. We also have to be intentional about it. Let us hear what the public wants to say to us. And I really hope that we make that change, because I would not want to see the same scenario that happened last year. I think Ruku was...
We've not seen indications of any change in as far as parliamentary processes are concerned.
Well, we haven't seen, but we must have some hope. You know, we cannot sell fear to the Kenyan people that, oh, this finance bill will be terrible, it will be worse than the other one. You know, that would be inciting them. And that is why I'm saying we are giving the government a chance, an opportunity, members of parliament, to ensure that they engage with the populace, they engage with the citizenry. They actually factor in their views and represent their views on the floor of parliament. I do hope that they will do so, because if they do not, I do not want to imagine where we will be as a nation. Allow me to comment on the counties' budgets. I think Moranga had 10 point something trillion in the last financial year.
Billion, probably.
And I think what we must also evaluate, how much of these monies that goes to the counties is going to development initiatives, how much of it is going to recurrent expenditure. And I still feel we must audit devolution in Kenya. Is it really impactful, or is it costing more than the impact that the Kenyan citizens are getting? And you know, when I say that, people always ask me, oh, don't you want to be a governor in future? I do not want to be a governor if my people are suffering. So for me, it is about what the people of Kirinyaga County will get in terms of development, in terms of infrastructure, in terms of education. And I think my colleague Ruku here and several people, we've always discussed what can we do to make perhaps education centrally funded by government, and we have all this duplication of bursaries just done away with. So we must really have this conversation. We must not always be populist and look at, you know, perhaps the next election. We must think the next generation as leaders.
All right. And of course, President Donald Trump of the US has thrown a spanner in the works that by withdrawing a lot of funding that would have gone towards health programs, some towards education programs that you're talking about. And some of these are devolved functions. Bonaruku, are you concerned that if at all county budgets mirror what we're seeing in at the national level in as far as what is left for development vis-a-vis recurrent expenditure, that without the funding that comes from international donors, that most counties will be left exposed after this budget cycle?
I think for me, I'm very happy with the Trump decision in terms of let's think America first. That's why also we say Kenya Kwanza. You know, it's Kenya first. We should take care of our issues first before taking care of our neighbors. I don't think I'm a member of parliament of Better North. I would want to take care of the interests of my neighbors, other constituencies, before I fulfill the interests of Better North. So let's find a way of minding our business and trying to solve our problems as Kenyans without thinking that we will get this help from so-and-so and from the other.
The reality on the ground is that at county level, most hospitals expect their funding to come from international donors. With the removal of that kind of funding and the kind of budget-making process we have where a lot of the money just goes to recurrent expenditure, none to development, even at the county level, don't you think that this will be a big problem after this budget cycle?
And that's why this budget is proposing health to have 204 billion Kenyan shilling for this year, which is an improvement from the previous year's budget. Also, this year education budget is going up to 718 billion Kenyan shilling from last year of 650 billion. Agriculture is also going up to 86 billion Kenyan shilling. So we are seeing that indeed the Kenya Kwanza administration, the president and his executive, they are coming up with ways of cushioning some of these new happenings happening as far as President Trump is concerned. But it's important to note that in terms of the recurrent expenditure, is 3.1 billion. I mean, is it 3.1? Let me check. Recurrent expenditure of this year.
The next budget, the recurrent expenditure is 3.09 trillion shillings.
Yes.
A development budget, 725, and then the county transfers 436 billion. So most of the money, actually close to 90% of the funds are going to recurrent expenditure.
And that is huge. That is something which we have to really think about. And out of that 3.1 trillion Kenya shilling, how much is going to our liabilities, both domestic and international liabilities, in terms of paying our debt? You realize about 70% of that, of 3.1 trillion, is going to pay our debts. So the issue of debt is going to be with us for some time, but we have to find a way of getting out of it.
Okay. Jerry, because you speak from a county's perspective, you know, would you say the counties have been very lazy in as far as focusing on their key functions like health because of the kind of funding from donors that has been coming their way? Now with the withdrawal of this funding, because WHO is already struggling with the withdrawal of the US, and the USAID is almost getting shut. Do you foresee bad times ahead for most counties?
You know, I've just gotten an invite in regard to the InfoTrack polls that I am the #1 leading woman representative in Kenya for the second time in a row. So I'm very humbled for that, and I thank the people of Kirinyaga County for trusting me. The situation in regard to health is already terrible. I think we've heard a protest in Kirinyaga County in regard to the health facilities. The only county referral hospital has no HDU or ICU that is active. 80% of dispensaries across Kirinyaga County have no proper stock of medication, and even in the instances that there is any medication, it's basic medication like painkillers. And healthcare is one, I think, of the hugest concerns for a lot of counties. I don't know how the situation is like in Embu County because they neighbor Kirinyaga, but a lot of counties are struggling with healthcare. So with the withdrawal of the aid from the American government, I think the government of Kenya must have a conversation with counties and agree that in instances where counties are not able to deliver in regard to healthcare, then the national government has to step in, because healthcare is a very pivotal role.
Don't you think there's a role that you as legislators should play in anticipation of the kind of problems that would occur, given the withdrawal of funding by major donors like the US, that with this budget-making process, already we know that a lot of money is allocated to recurrent expenditure. How much of that is going to health? And are we still dependent, even in the budget-making process, to a lot of that donor aid?
I think the issue is not even in regard to how much will go to health, will the deficit and the issues that residents are facing, will they be catered to? And, you know, we have this separation of powers, and devolved units were even demanding for more of transfer of the work they're supposed to do by the national government. But I feel like healthcare is one of the areas where the national government must really step in and do a proper audit. You know, not for PR exercises, not for, maybe perhaps to just tick a box, but to have a serious conversation matters healthcare. Because the discontent you feel on the ground. I remember recently when the president came to Embu, and I was in attendance accompanying the former deputy president, and you could feel the response of the people in regard to healthcare, and how for them, they just want to know or be told that, or see actually, that healthcare is working. They do not want to be told that it's working, and on the ground, it is actually not working. We must also remember that healthcare is a devolved function. So when it isn't working, the national government also bears that burden. So they must have a serious conversation with the Council of Governors and do a serious and proper audit, so that if national government needs to step in, then we can step in. And in regard to the US, I think it is also a call to us as Kenyans and Africans to reevaluate our decisions and have slimmer budgets in future, trim down government in future, because I know this will happen more often than not now. We'll see other countries perhaps taking the same route. I know the UK also has some grants that they give us. And for the US government, I think perhaps it was in regard to relations, feeling that perhaps there are countries that take the contracts and they have to do the cleanup and fund and support government initiatives. So for them, it was a priority. So we must also prioritize Kenya and know what we ought to do to slim down government.
But from the perspective of the Kenyan taxpayer, Bwana Ruku, and this is as you make your final comments, is that health, for example, is one of the biggest factors on my payslip, that I'm paying a huge amount towards healthcare. Yet I know that that is going to be a bigger problem, even for me myself, accessing health services. From your perspective as a legislator, these are the kind of discussions that many people expect you to address in the budget-making process. Are you confident that they will be addressed this time round?
We have to continuously improve the services government gives to Kenyans. Year in, year out, Kenyans don't pay for security services. I have not seen where Kenyans do contributions so that we can have a police post, we can have a police station, within your area. It is provided by the state. There are other issues also must be provided by the state moving forward. One of them is health. The other thing is education. Education should be free from primary school all the way to the university. And the moment we'll be able to get these critical services right, we'll be talking about equity in the Republic of Kenya. But at the moment, the poor will continue feeling the pain.
You're not offering any hope this time around.
No. That's the situation at the moment. The situation is, if today Roko is not feeling well, has a very huge insurance cover, together with my colleague here, provided for by Parliamentary Service Commission. Is that the case with my people in Kwandombogo? Is that the case with my people in another small rural village in Sheria? No. So what is this we can do to ensure the way Ruko is taken care of as far as health is concerned is the same way my people of Sheria village are also taken care of? So I am looking forward to a day when we will have Kenyans from all walk of life, poor or rich, educated or not, are taken care of as far as health matters are concerned. Because that is one of the things that affects the families, households in the Republic of Kenya in a serious way. When I go in my interaction in the constituency, every time I have a public function, I will not miss a line of about 5 to 10 people who want to see me because one of their family member is not feeling well, is sick, or whoever is seeing me need some help so that they can access medical care. So this is something which you have to get it right. The other important thing which you have to get it right as a nation is education. Because in Muri, we have extremely brilliant kids in remote areas in the Republic of Kenya. In a place like Ngarwereri, one of the remote places in my constituency, in Daraka, we have extremely bright young kids who their parents are extremely poor. They can't afford to pay anything. So we are condemning some of these people, some of these young, bright kids, because they can't be able to access education. Okay. So we have to find a way,
because our
moving forward, of getting it right as far as education is concerned, health is concerned, and other important issues of ensuring
and it all starts with the budget making process.
Yes, we are getting there. That's why you can see there is some huge amount of money which has been allocated to education sector.
Okay.
There is also a huge amount of money which has been allocated to...
And I'm being rushed out of studio. I just needed to give the Honorable Jerry Maina just a parting shot, 30 seconds only parting shot.
I want to call upon members of parliament, let us reevaluate our duty and our role as an independent institution put in place by the Kenyan people to defend their interests in regard to the consistency, right?
For consistency. Them after 2.5 years.
Yes.
So that we can be consistent.
This is coming from the same legislators who are going to go through this budget-making process this time around. 4 months to go to the end of this financial year. Geoffrey Ruku, MP Mberenof, Njeri Maina, Woman Representative, Kirinyaga County. Asanteni sana for your time at TV47. Yes, indeed, the budget-making process, as far as the National Assembly is concerned, begins in tandem this time round. Of course, once the National Assembly gets its house in order, in as far as who's a majority, who's a minority, then this is one of the main agenda that we'll be looking at in the next 4 months. All right, after the break, we'll be discussing matters Valentine's Day, 2 days to go. And they're asking, who's supposed to benefit? Who's supposed to be the biggest beneficiary of Valentine's Day? Is it the men or the women? That after the break. My name is Freddie Ndimuli. Good morning.